Thank you. Oh, brilliant, it works. So, blaming the parents. Some of you may know that I'm about to blame some technology for not clicking when it's meant to, so this will be interesting. Right. There we go. So, there's a big question that we, in this industry specifically, cybersecurity, really need to ask ourselves. And I want everyone to just think about this when I ask it. It's a very difficult question. Why does our industry exist? Seriously, why does our industry actually exist? Why are we in a world where we have such fundamental flaws in the very technology and systems and tools that we use that we need a whole industry to paper over the cracks? What went wrong? I'm not promising an inspiring talk, I'm afraid, just in case that wasn't clear. And incidentally, I do have permission from my parents for this talk. I did clear it with them. It is allowed. I will promise you some answers. So, first of all, I'm going to explain why we knew better, why we didn't have to end up here. And yes, I know many of us love working in cybersecurity, but wouldn't it be better if we didn't need to? And why those problems weren't actually fixed. What lies at the root of us continuing to have to paper over the cracks? And why we don't talk about it enough. I mean, I think it does get spoken about more, but we're really not talking about it enough. By the way, the clears are a special in-joke for anyone as nostalgic as me. So let's deal with the elephant in the room. Yes, it is a whale, I'm aware. I could find ASCII art of an elephant, but you have no idea how difficult it is to code ASCII art in LaTeX. Hitchhiker, brilliant. There's a few fans. Now, I don't normally do the whole, this is me, this is why you should listen to me. For this talk, I felt I kind of have to. So I'm James Bohr. I've got a master's in cybersecurity. I'm a chartered security professional. I wrote a book. You can buy it out there. I grew up with technology in a way that very many people didn't. So the family business was technology before most people had the internet. We had dual ISDN lines when most people were still discovering faxes. This isn't to try and say, I'm hyper-advanced, I'm hugely privileged. Well, I was hugely privileged. I grew up with the very earliest days of tech in a way that most people just didn't have the opportunity to. And that meant I got to see some things as they were built in the way that many of our parents might have done, since they were responsible for building them. I've got somewhere over 20 years' experience. I'm not giving you a number. I feel old enough as it is. I am angry, I am bitter, and I am disappointed in our industry as a whole. And partly it's because this is the exact cyberpunk future we were promised in the 80s. I hate it. So history lesson time. No more ASCII art titles. It's a headache. It took hours. 1970, the Ware Report was published, also known as Security Controls for Computer Systems. This is available for free online. It was published freely at the time. It wasn't really available online because there was no online. Key findings. Satisfactory security. So security that's good enough. Controls, they're about system design. Fundamentally, it's a design problem. 1970, fundamentally, security controls are a design problem. Current technology cannot provide satisfactory controls for an open system. Now, they had two ideas: closed systems, where you lock it in a room, and you lock the people using it in a room, and if they try to break out, you shoot them, because this was largely military. But we can't provide that sort of control for an open system where we're letting the public on. Now, at this point, there were a few dozen computers in the world that the public could log on to. So this would have been a great time to fix that, and they identified the problem. Even better, we can actually implement acceptable procedures and safeguards, whether it's open or closed. Brilliant. We know how to fix this. Let's do it. Here's a problem they really identified. Secure system designers are on a steep learning curve. How many people know someone out there who develops systems? Who builds systems, codes them, does architecture, network engineering, business engineering, analysis? Right. How many of you know more than one of those? Say 10 people who do that sort of design. Hands up. Interactive. Oh, we've definitely got one side and the other going on here. But how many of you know one of those 10 people who has significant security understanding? Yeah, there's definitely a minority there. They do exist. I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying that in 1970, it was identified that system designers are on a steep learning curve and require insight and operational experience. And today, 55 years later, system designers are on a steep learning curve and require insight and operational experience. Substantial improvement in security can be expected. That's it, you can all go home now. It did actually identify after that if the work is done. 1972, the sequel, the Anderson Report. I love this one. Computer Security Technology Planning Study. Seriously, download these reports, print them out, frame them, read them. They are brilliant. Key findings. Patching without any better technical foundation is futile for achieving multi-level security. How do we achieve security today? Anyone? That went better than I thought. Let's be enthusiastic this time. How do we achieve security today? Anyone? Yeah. There's a need for a formal statement of what is meant by a secure system. Can anyone tell me, formally, what a secure system is? I mean, that's not a model or ideal design, but I'm not going to argue with it. And it uses the concept of a reference monitor to validate all references. So every access, everything you do with the system must be validated and authorized. 1972. There's a buzzword that some of you will recognize here. That's zero trust. In 1972, zero trust was supposedly invented, for want of a better word, 40 years after that. And we're still not implementing it. Don't worry, final formal report, I promise. But this is also worth a read. Salter and Schroeder, Protecting Information in Computer Systems. Now, this one's bullet point heavy. I'm sorry about that, but they are important. 8 key principles were identified. I'm going to ask you to have a think about which of these you can see clearly implemented today in system design. Firstly, economy of mechanism, which, if I shorten it, is keep it simple. The simplest way, the clearest way, is the best way to achieve something, because then we can analyse it, understand what can go wrong, and close down potential abuse cases. It's brilliant. So, software engineers have kept everything simple, right? They've used the lowest level language they can. They've done the minimum amount of abstraction so that they're working with very clear mechanisms. I'll let you answer that yourselves. Fail-safe defaults. If in doubt, if it's doing something unexpected, block. How many people here have worked with firewall rules? How many people here have seen a default allow any as the last rule on a firewall? Yeah, pretty much the same number. Complete mediation. Every access, every operation should be authorized. That's zero trust. 5 years later, still hadn't done it. 40 years later, well, we're using it as a nice buzzword to sell stuff. Open design. Now, this is a principle of cryptography. We rely on keys, not secrecy about the design. Anyone seen the recent thing in the news about Horizon, where the post office have had to spend another 600 million to keep it running because they can't inspect the code that they paid to be developed? Secrecy is bad. Separation of privilege, 1975, no single points of failure. Now, this isn't user segregation. This is saying any two users should not rely on a common component that can fail. It's about redundancy and resiliency. Least privilege. Least common mechanism. Minimum shared components between systems, because when you have shared components, you introduce single points of failure. And the eighth one, I think, is a really important one that still gets overlooked. Psychological acceptability. If your system is not usable, it is not secure. For anyone who's familiar with the Polkarian hexad, which takes the CIA triad and adds 3 more attributes to it, one of those is utility. If it's not usable, it's not secure. Ultimately, a system is secure when it can achieve its aims without detrimental effects. There's that formal definition. So if it's not usable, ain't secure. Right, I told you that was the last of the academic paper types. So, 50 years. Yeah, we've had the answer to building secure systems for 50 years, more than 50 years. We had embedded systems, special purpose systems, which were engineered with all of these principles built in the 80s. Guess what happened? We did know better. We knew exactly how to do it well. Why didn't we? You've been reading ahead. Money, private equity, venture capital, investment firms. This is where the capitalists may come for me, by the way, so if they do, please block that door. I think I can get out the fire escape. Security has never been the goal of building modern technology. Really hasn't, not for a long time. The goal was all about agility. Agile has done more to destroy the modern world than anything else. And yes, I'm sure there's Agile Manifesto people now queuing up outside with the capitalists. So the goal was about speed. It was about delivering things fast. It was about making money, profit, least effort, make people want it, sell it to them. Security used to be a practice. Some areas of security still are. Physical security is still a practice in most cases. Don't ask about vehicle prevention bollards. It's a product. We package it, and hopefully none of the vendors are in here. We sell it, and we pitch it, and we make money off it. It's a competitive advantage. It's not seen as an intrinsic need. It's not seen as something we should just do because it's the right thing. It's something you buy, not something you do. Fear sells really well. Uncertainty sells really, really well. And doubt, if I'm not sure I'm secure, I'll buy stuff to make me more secure. And you told me it will make me safe. You sold me peace of mind. You told me I should be scared. You told me I should be uncertain. You told me I shouldn't be sure. You told me I had all of these problems. because I bought bloody worthless, insecure tech from you that you are selling me the solutions to. FUD comes with a quota. Fear, uncertainty and doubt for anyone who's not familiar with the FUD acronym. Marketing gets to write the roadmap. I mean, some of my best friends are marketers, and the grift is really scalable. That's the important thing, isn't it? It's that your company is scalable. It's not that you do it right. Well, my company's been around nearly 40 years, and we're now at 3 people from 2. We're not particularly scalable, but you know what we are good at? So, who do we blame? And yes, still no ASCII art, I'm sorry. It's all the fault of those who came before us. It's all the fault of our parents. It's all the fault of the founders, the ancestors of IT. Yeah? It's all their fault. All the fault of the parents. Blame the parents. Blame the people who wrote those first RFCs. Blame the people who built those first operating systems and didn't consider security. They really should have done better. Yeah, it's 100% down to them. Yeah? We're here today talking about technology, talking about security. How many conversations have you had recently about the misaligned incentives around building systems? Around building systems for profit rather than people? How many times have you had that conversation outside of after-party drinks, pre-drinks? How many times has it come up at a conference? I mean, it's certainly not going to come up at a commercial one because, yeah, that kind of breaks their model. We argue a lot about, and I had to do this purely for the alliteration, EDRs and encryption. Which is the best encryption algorithm? Which EDR should we use? Well, you shouldn't have to use any of them because it's a fundamental flaw in the bloody system. We turn a blind eye to the charlatans out there. And there's not a small number of them. There are a lot of people. I'm not going to name them because I've already had someone threaten to sue me over that. And when we say, this is broken, everyone just nods and agrees. And it is broken. Our whole industry is fundamentally because we have made huge mistakes. Oh, I'm sorry, the parents made huge mistakes, right? We can blame them. We just have to live with it. Saying this is dishonest gets you fired, or walking away over ethical disagreements. Personal experience again. Ask me about that after a few drinks. Or sued. For those who have seen that talk, get professional indemnity insurance and personal injury if you're going to talk about this in a personal capacity. Whistleblowers don't get funded. They get locked out and ignored and cut out from the industry and shut down. And we learn this lesson very well. Shut up, take the paycheck. Bit of history, going back further, yeah? Everyone's heard of the Luddites, right? Anti-technology, anti-progress, like to smash machines. Now, I've not got time to give you a full history of the Luddites, I'd love to, but just remember, they were not anti-technology, they were not anti-progress. They were against exploitation. They were against systems being turned against them that they depended on and used against them. They were anti-bullshit, ultimately, and they took real action over that. Now, I'm going to be careful what I say here, because if someone goes out and does something and smashes an IBM mainframe, I don't want to be blamed. And they knew exactly where quiet obedience led. I will give you fair warning. Their protests led to exactly the same place. So, blame the parents if you want. It's their fault. We just have to live with it as it is. When was the last time blame fixed anything? That is really down to us. It's down to us to do better. It's down to us to make sure the people building the systems have some understanding, that we have some input, that we can drive these things the way that they should be. And yes, I realise I'm putting a lot on a crowd of however many you are in a community conference in Glasgow, where I will say it's got the anarchy feel right down. But it is down to us. We need to have these conversations. We need to talk about it. We need to identify and talk about these problems so we can fix them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amazing talk. Any questions for him? Any statements, any agreement?
Thank you so much for the talk. Just out of curiosity, when you're talking about, it's almost like activism in a sense, because you're looking for each of us to have responsibility for the actions that we do, because it is a very twisted world out there. But it requires collective thought and real purpose for that thought. But that gets drowned out by all the crap toxicity that's out there. So what is your recommendation to get cut through that shit?
Well, I recommend coming to community conferences and having these conversations and talking about it. We will never get to have these conversations at commercial conferences. We won't. I've had enough talks rejected from them that I know what I'm not allowed to talk about. Apparently, stop buying new shit is not something that gets you into InfoSec Europe. Shocking, isn't it? So we have to actually do better as a community to talk to each other and to have these conversations and then to take action based on it, not just grumble around it. Now, I'm going to be at another conference in some time, and I've got something there which is how to build a think tank, because it takes about 4 hours, 0 effort, and there's campaigning that you can do with that. There are ways that you can put pressure on. There are things you can do to drive media conversations, to raise public awareness, and to steer things. And it doesn't have to be standing up in the middle of a board meeting and saying, no, you're wrong. You've poured 6 million into that system and it doesn't actually fix anything. What we need to do is rip out everything and start over, because that's not going anywhere. But having these conversations and pushing them out there, whether it's in media, whether it's personally, whether it's to the community, that's the best solution I've got. It's not ideal. If anyone's got a better solution, please share it. But we need to talk about it.
I have a follow-up for that.
Oh. Coming.
So that is on a kind of micro level. If you were to take it to the next step, and you were to then talk to like-minded individuals, then to the next step to, say, even politicians or individuals that can understand what you're trying to do to better society, that's what I'm talking about, the next step, because you need those stakeholders involved to then get to the next level. So that is my next question about when you get to that bit, because there will be momentum that will build. And I think we're going to get to that because we're in a really bad state. It's about that, about how do we do it to that level.
Who here's written to their MP? I thought you'd say yes. That's a key way. Yeah. MPs are your representatives. Many of them, even the worst ones, even the ones where I have complete political disagreement with them, not counting certain ones, but ones where I disagree with their party, when I've actually engaged with them and said, I'm one of your constituents, I have this issue, I have this concern, it's gone somewhere. You can write to MPs, you can write to the Lords. That's how you elevate things. That's how you drive them forward. We're not going to get this to happen just by having happy, clappy circles and encouraging each other. As you say, it does take that action. And writing a letter isn't hard. Write to your MP, write to your representative, say, I have these concerns. Can I talk to you about them? Educate them about it. Make it an issue they care about. And that makes a difference. A couple of years ago, there was a lady, Baroness Hennig. She led a Lords Select Committee investigating fraud. Now, she has sadly passed away, but they released a report breaking the chain. I don't know if anyone's seen that the UK government are now taking action on fraud. Much delayed. Almost every single action they are taking is detailed in that report, and that was a bunch of the Lords getting together and saying, we want to really look at this, and we want to talk to people, and we want to understand it, and sitting down and thinking about it and producing a report that they gave to MPs to talk more about. It's not fast. I won't say it's easy, but it's not particularly hard. It is communication, and it's making sure the people who can do things have the information. So engage with them.
Another one down here. I'll get to you next.
So, if you're working in a industry that you've learned anything and everything, you're saying along the lines of, don't blame your parents. The solution that I would see, and I take my nephew as one of the solutions, is I teach what I know to the younger generation. And I don't say that I know everything, but the things that I've done that have been successful in my life, I'll teach them to my nephew. And like typical things which would be in like money and how they spend their time. Take YouTube, for example, comes with a subscription nowadays. How many people are not, you get like the adverts that pop up, frustrates you, so you pay the subscription for it. You're now just throwing money into an economy and you get stuck by it. Inevitably, AI is going to come into this circumstance where you're all going to get like stuck using AI, and then it'll become a necessity by paying it, and you end up making even more vulnerabilities. These risks, teach them to your kids, your younger friends. Let them be the ones that drive it all forwards. Because we can't make that difference now, but we can start to warn people for the future. It's just whether we can catch up over the past like 10 years.
I've got nothing to add to that.
And I think we had one more down here. I think this will be the last one just for time.
Yeah, my question was kind of the inverse of what we were discussing earlier in the what can be done, what can you do, how should we, etc. And obviously organising, discussing, and then from that perhaps devising actions, all makes sense. It's all still quite general, but it did make me also think, what would you recommend never doing, not doing, absolutely avoiding, and things that you see as the sort of the death of good activism or of good progression?
So I'm going to address this on an organisational level because I think that's probably most relevant for people here. The biggest hurdle to building actual secure systems, whether they're processes, whether they're technology, that I see every single time where a company has any security awareness. Where they don't, we're not involved in that conversation. There's a limit to what we can do. It's when security tries to take ownership of security instead of engaging and educating. So within organisations, if you work in an organisation where there's a development team, meet them for a coffee. Take 5 minutes in the canteen and have a chat with the head of development or anyone in there and just say, I'm interested in what you're doing. Let's have a chat. Ultimately, it's all about humans. And trying to say, no, we own this. You have to come through us. You know what's going to happen? It's not a usable system, therefore they won't go through you, and you will never find out until you're in the headlines because your SAP database got compromised, not just a breach.
That's grand. Massive round of applause for James and his amazing talk.